Marie, thanks very much for joining me on CenterFrame interview. It's been a little bit since we've spoken actually, because we had our first conversation when we asked you to join the Core 50 community here at CenterFrame about like a few months ago. It was in like September, October, something like that it was.
Yeah.
And we came across you because of a short film you made, which premiered at Cannes, called Blue Fear. And actually, that's not it's not an accurate title. Actually, that's the English title. So, could you tell us a little bit about Blue Fear, and what the actual title is, what it means, and how you developed it?
So the actual title is in French, Fille bleue, peur blanche, which would literally translate in English as blue girls, white fear. But the thing is, it's a play on word in French, because a blue fear in French, that's the actual expression, means a really big fear. And it was like playing with words and like crossing references with like, just like interchanging adjectives, and people get it. But in English it just makes a really long title, and has no play on words included, so we just shortened it to Blue Fear. That was more
Right.
impactful.
Makes sense. How would you describe a blue fear? Like if you had to explain to somebody what a blue fear is, what would you?
uh, I don't. It's just like an extreme fear, but to me personally, I think I rooted it in paranormal fear, as in of ghosts, like a fantasy fear.
Right.
So you'd be really, really scared or spooked out in haunted house, for instance. You'd have a blue fear.
A blue fear would come with horror films or something like that as well, or how else would you describe it? Or is it just entirely
Yeah,
internal?
maybe something that would make your blood a bit cold. But for instance, no, it's just a really big fear. Actually, I was gonna say maybe I wouldn't associate it with like the feeling of vertigo, for instance, but I think you could as well. It's just something that is quite extreme, an extreme feeling of fear.
So how did Blue Fear come about? Like, what was the first idea behind Blue Fear? Because you have a collaborator that you made this film with, Lola Halifa Legrand. How did Blue Fear come about, and what was sort of the inspiration behind it?
Um, it came about a desire to collaborate. She discovered my work, like, I mean, when we became friends about 10 years ago. And she was writing a lot of fiction work, like as in novels, short stories, stories for children books. And she had this idea of writing a script for an animation movie, so I could animate my drawings. And the few first texts, like drafts she sent me, were actually a recording of her dreams, or like dreams she had like based some novels, some short stories on. And I loved her writing, so I got on board. And through discussing from her text and just like our chats, like informal chats as friends, we decided to write about some topics that we were both fascinated about in both our works, which is like human relationships, but also all the anxieties that are born from misunderstandings, entering new relationships, trying to be in relation with someone. And here in the movie, it's a new couple, a new relationship starting as a couple, and the anxiety of the girl regarding this new relationship.
Was it primarily Lola that came up with the basic story idea, or did she draw from something specific that she saw in your paintings?
I think a bit of both. She saw some stuff in my paintings, and she also came with her personal topics. It's like a mix.
Right.
But it was definitely written for my work, I think.
Yeah, I saw in an interview, she mentions that she really liked. She was talking about Amazonian women and horses and stuff like that, and you were like, "Oh yes, horses! I want to do horses." So why horses? Like because
It's hard to explain. No, I think obviously like it's an intuition, like an instinct. But I can draw like a lot of meanings from horses. It's like a powerful creature, and there is something really wild associated with horses, and there is something a bit westerny, like living in the wild as well, associated with horses. And I think like having women on horses and a horde of them was really powerful. So as a symbol, I was really drawn to it. But personally, I know that I've always been quite, I don't know, fascinated with like a few animals, but like especially horses, like mainly, drawing them. I don't really know why.
yes, but you also had to animate horses. I mean, it's a whole nother thing. That's where I was gonna get to. I was like, it's one thing to say, yeah, I want to draw a horse. Suddenly you have to animate it. So did you regret your decision to add horses, or was it like an interesting
No,
sort
it
of
was
decision?
interesting. Like, to be really honest, we had to cut out a few ideas I had around some scenes, because they were going to be like the most expensive scenes of like the whole animation history of cinema, I think.
Right. Oh my god.
And also, because I had never done animation before, I think I went in it like really blindly. And thank God I was assisted by a brilliant animation director, Leo Schwitzer, and who really helped me kind of make sense and, what we could and couldn't do in terms of like, budget, timings, size of like animation team with horses, drawn horses, in my style of drawing as well, which is not really simple.
So, since it's your first time animating, what were the lessons that the animation taught you? I mean, you obviously come from the art world, and like you said, your paintings are more complex. How do you take your complex paintings and turn them into something multi-pictured? Like what were the lessons you learned, and how did you end up going about it?
Well, one thing I discovered with animation, I discovered everything about animation, but the things that were like the most foreign to my practice that I discovered, one of them was teamwork. So that's like, it's amazing. That was great, but that was really hard because it means you have to prepare everything. So everything is super organized, or, at most we can do. And everything is organized and prepared in advance. That is to say that I had to do a lot of drawings beforehand, had to do like some drawings multiple times, had to do like the sketch of the drawing, and respect the frame that I would impose to myself. Like as in, if I said that in the sketch of the drawing, like the horizon, I don't know, is like this at this place of the screen. When the animator is going to animate on top of it, I can't suddenly change the background to the horizon, because then you fuck up the whole sequence.
Yeah.
So you have to stick to a set plan. And I found that really difficult because that's not the way I work usually. I usually have like a loose idea of what I want to tell as a storyline, and then I start making the drawings, and the drawings take me somewhere. But that's impossible in a movie. You have to execute and produce what you have imagined once. So for a year, you're going to be working on decisions you made in a month. So that's like, it's a very different process of working. And also the teamwork thing is great. So you have to be super organized, but also you have to trust people. And you have to delegate. And at first it was really, really hard for me, because I never had this experience of someone else making my drawings, except of me.
Yeah.
And they were all amazing drawers, like, you know, amazing drawers, but they all have their own personal style, and they were like really able to replicate mine. You know, I think it's really astonishing when you see it without my eyes. And for me, it was just a matter of letting go of like this idea of perfection in a way, or like how letting go of the fact that it's not going to be only my drawings anymore.
Yeah, I mean that was one thing I was going to ask you, is that is you as a director who works with actors, I'm always at the mercy of going with what they're doing. So I can only do so much myself. I can only tell the camera operator point in this direction, and I can only tell them to go somewhere wherever they do. But I'm used to that. I'm used to handing as that kind of control over to them, and then hopefully it all plays together and creates something that when I look at it, I like it. Yeah. But I've always had that, you know. I mean, I've had to learn how to work that. But in your case, you're coming from a completely different creative process, which is entirely individual, I guess. I mean, I don't know if you've done art with others before like that, but it seems like a complete contrast.
Yes, it is. And it was great. I loved it, to be honest, but it was really exhausting because it was just discovering a new way of doing something whilst doing it. So I mean, life is like that anyways. But it was quite a lengthy project to discover it, and a lot of people that do animation have had like the experience of school, for instance, or like student projects to experiment that kind of group relationship, which I hadn't, and plus, which is absolutely dreamy, but I was like the director of the film, so I had to take every decision, and I was the only judge to say whether or not we had to, you know, rework on some sequence or if it was good enough. And when you have no comparison points from before, it's quite scary. It was great, but it was exhausting. Yeah.
I believe it. Tell me about how you and Lola worked together during the filming, because you obviously, she wrote the script, but you still had to get the actors to record the voices, and you still have to storyboard it. Was Lola part of that process too, or did she give it to you and you did it yourself?
Yeah, it was quite a ping pong. So she'd leave me like long periods of time where I do, you know, a lot of drawings, and then she'd come back and, you know, give me feedback on it, and we'd discuss. So she visited, let's say, at all the stages of the movie making. For the storyboard, for instance, we went on a month-long residency together. So I'd work on it like on my own, like every day, but like, you know, we'd have some reunions. I'd consult with her. It was like a really smooth process. And it was really, really helpful to have someone else's eyes, and, you know, even because like this adventure was so new for me, it was really good to have someone that was not actually making the drawings or like too involved in the making process, who could come and visit and still be like really involved in the project itself, like, you know, be like a director's voice. But she came like visiting a few days at a time when we were in residency with all the animators for months, like actually making the animation. She'd look at the sequences we'd already make and, I don't know, just give her opinion. And the text changed a lot as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about there is actually, I have two questions. I'll start with this one first. You had to stick to drawings in one aspect ratio, because painting, you can pretty much pick whatever frame you like, but you had to stick to that. Tell me about storytelling, or what that transition was like to go into saying, look, I have to see things this way.
Actually, when I did the storyboard, there was like the size, like the set size, not a problem at all. What was more challenging during the storyboard, so when you imagine the movie, was for me like the timing of things, because I was just like, you know, trying to imagine something from a text. And we had done a mock-up like version of like, so I had it like in audio, but still it's like super hard when you've never done anything moving to like understand like so that really did my head in. I was like,
right.
And then that was during like the making of the movie when you know, I drew all the backgrounds, and I did all the layouts for every scene. That was really difficult for me because it meant that for 9 months I only drew in one set format. And exactly as you said in the question, like usually it's just spontaneous, and I choose as my heart, you know, decides on the moment I'm doing the thing. So yeah, that was intense in terms of restraints. I had to like...
You couldn't change anything, right?
No, you just have to go
exactly.
with it. You have to trust yourself, you have to go with it.
So what was it like working with actors? Had you done that before, at least in some way or another, or?
No, never. And this, luckily, was really Lola's part. I mean, I was there, but it was me assisting her. And that happened really early on in the process. You know, we did the storyboard, validated the text, and that's one of the first things you do on a short movie. You record the text so you can work from the soundtrack. But it was amazing. It was one day in the studio with like 8 actresses and 1 actor. And yeah, it was really fun. It was really exciting, but it was really out of my depth. But Lola, she had like some experience in acting. She did like an acting school. So she was a bit more at ease, like directing actors.
So what did you learn from Lola in regards to dealing with actors on that front? Like, can you point to something that was a big sort of aha moment for you? It's like, oh, so this is how you, I don't know, it would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think like what I learned is if you're with professionals, you know, like it's a teamwork in a different way, but everyone, like, you don't have to know everything, you know? So Lola she's a really great, I don't know how you say in English, like accompagnant.
Companion.
Yeah, so she's good at creating like a group synergy, like group energy. So that was great, but we had really good sound technicians, and the actresses were amazing. They were really willing, and it was really playful, so it worked well. But it's more that, what I learned is like if you're surrounded by people who know their job, you can trust them, and then they'll bring also ideas.
Fantastic. So tell me about Hugo Bienvenu.
Yeah.
Because he sounds like he was a big part in getting the film made. So
yeah, for sure.
Tell me about how you met him and what his part in all this is, and just tell me about Hugo.
But Hugo is a friend, and he's actually like the key for all this to happen to Lola and I, because as I said, I've never done animation before, and at one party we were chatting, and and he was asking me what were my projects, and really not modestly I said, well, actually I'm writing an animation movie with Lola. And he was already like an animator himself, and he said, amazing, like I'm super keen, just send me your portfolio with like the project portfolio, which we did, and he put it on the table of his producer at the time, Miyu. He was also like kind of part running like the Miyu production.
Yeah,
it was like a much smaller structure at the time. And that didn't work, and like 3 months later he really insisted, and the producer contacted me, And that was it. That was launched, and then we started like the whole funding process and stuff. So that's what Hugo did first, found us a producer, but also what he did, which made the movie possible, I believe, is like he did the first version of the trailer, which was actually a crash test to see if my drawings could be animated. Right. And he did this with Leo Schweitzer, who became like the animation director on the movie. But both of them, just the two of them, did like, animated a few sequences of the movie. And I think that proved to anyone else, who invested in the movie afterwards that it could be done. So that was like, key pivotal moments, I think.
What was the budget on this film?
I think it was like 108,000. No, 180,000. 180,000.
180,000.
I
Right,
think
well,
so.
That's a big budget.
I think so. I mean, it's extremely expensive.
Yeah, that's wow. So how long did it take you guys to do it in the end?
About a year.
A year?
A month of storyboarding on my own, and then it was like 2 months, 3 people working, and then 5 to 8 months where we had like a constant 5 or 6 people working on it.
Incredible.
Ouais, full time. So it's like and I'm not even counting like, technicians like sound, editing, the actresses, all those interventions that are more or less 1 or 2 days, but it's like 10 people more,
That's an incredible budget for a first short film. That's
Yeah. We were super lucky to have so much support. Because obviously, if you don't get the fundings before starting the project, you don't start it, because in short movies there is no money.
Of course.
So yeah, it's amazing. It was a lot of pressure, but I'm super grateful.
Absolutely, and it is also a really, really, really good film. It was a pleasure to see it in full, because when we spoke, I'd only gotten to see trailers because it was still just fresh out of festivals. It hadn't been released online yet. So I'd only seen, short clips, and I'd seen interviews and stuff like that, but hadn't gotten to see the full film. And when I finally did, it was a real pleasure. I really enjoyed it. How would you work differently now, knowing what animation and short film is like? How would you approach it differently now to make your next film? Now that what would you do better? What would you do differently?
I think I'd organize the work sheet differently, as in to fit more of like, maybe to have more time on my own beforehand to start preparing the thing. I would change only that. To be able to just like really explore on my own before having a whole team to manage and exploring at the same time as I'm managing a team. As in like trying to like shorten the fabrication time to like, pure animation where we just make it, and having a longer period of time maybe to explore more on the backgrounds and having something more complex, not animation-wise, but
story-wise.
Yeah, visually wise, without making it too expensive to animate. I have a better understanding of the economy of the movie and the economy of animation, and I feel I would make wiser choices next time. I don't know wiser, because it was fun to make it this way, but at least more economical, and try out different stuff differently.
You're working with Lola again in your next project, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that project? Anything you can reveal about either the ideas or the story or anything like that?
I mean, it's very early stages, because we're preparing the portfolio to find some fundings now, or a producer, or both. One thing I can say is that we really want it to be like more experimental, and maybe more of an installation than an actual cinema movie. I'm really fond of the work of William Kentridge, who's like really like great artist, and he always like things. I mean, not always, but like in many of his works, they are really thought of as installation or like sculptural sort of movies that you can, like that are immersive, that you can walk in as a viewer, and I'd really love to try and develop something like that in my own way. Voilà. And about the story, I think it's gonna talk about sexuality a lot, about desire, about frustration, and also about frustration related to creation. It's the story of a writer. So it's someone who tries to write something, and at the same time is kind of like as he's trying to write, he gets really frustrated sexually and has like a big sexual drive, and he's I don't know how you say traverser. Bon, anyway, yeah.
Now that sounds really interesting. So you're still in early stages for that though, and you're putting everything together to get that project off the ground.
We have a text. Like I really have a clear intention on like what kind of drawings and how I would like it to be, made. But I'm trying to write everything down so we can get some interest in it and get a team basically behind us.
That sounds really great. And one last question. I'm sure now that you've done it, you will see animated movies completely differently now, right?
I already had a lot of respect for animators and animation movie, but now it's like respect tinted of experience, of trauma. I really know in my bones like the amount of effort that go into a project.
Do you have, and this is going to be my last question, do you have a favorite shot in your film, one that you're really proud of where you go, we did that and that's great?
I have a few actually for very different reasons.
Okay, give me all of them. Tell me.
Well, there is one shot that we used to... that we were all thinking that's the shot of the movie, and it's because it was like so complicated to make, is the one where you see all the horses and all the women walking towards the camera. That was so labor intensive, and I think it's like it's a great achievement. So I'm really pleased with it, and I was really unsure at some point, and I was like, oh my god, what did I do? What did I write? So that's cool. Other than I really like the sequence where there is a woman, there is this one girl walking in front of a screen, so it's a screen within a screen, and then she tells her story, and then you can see in the backdrop screen what's happening, and it was all animated. It's two animators. One did the girl, but one other animator did like the whole like sequence, and I think he did an amazing job. It's Augustin Guichot, and in terms of drawings and stuff, it's like, well, I think it works really well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great sequence. It's a really good sequence. If you could do, okay, I'm going to ask my last one. If you could do it over again, if you could have a second shot at this film, would you? Would you change things, or would you just say, no, I've done it. I'm out of here, never touching it again?
Honestly, I think if I could do it over again, like knowing what it demands, I would definitely prepare it more in advance. With Leo, maybe like the animation director, so I can animate on it a bit. I was a bit frustrated because I was working in the same room as the animators for the whole process, and I was drawing every day, but I had no time to actually really intervene on the the animation process, and I would have loved. But that also means that I would have had to have learned, how to animate prior to this and stuff. But, if we can rewrite any story, that would be my wish.
Well, thank you very, very much for joining me to discuss your film. I really, really appreciate it. And I really hope that your next project. Do you have a title for the next project or not yet?
Well, for now, I mean, it's a working title, but who knows? It's called Béa. It's like a short in French for Béatrice, which is a French name. But it also means bliss.
Ah, I see. So it's the double meaning of it.
It's a name that is not really in fashion anymore, but I really like it.
Yeah, no, great. Okay, so well, good luck on trying to get Bea off the ground, and
thanks.
we obviously we will be in touch soon again because we have CenterFrame memberships to meet up, and now I'm gonna have some virtual meetups that I'm gonna schedule with you guys soon as well, so you can meet each other some more. So yeah, thanks very much for joining me, and we'll be in touch again soon.
Cool. Brilliant. Thanks a lot for your questions and your time.